Muted.
Good morning or afternoon. This is Craig Bayer from Optimal, and I also have from Trumpet Will. Will, how you doing?
Doing great this morning, Craig.
So the purpose of this this presentation, I guess the title is Find Anything Fast Than 30 Minutes and Save 30 plus hours. I think we're actually going to cover that today, and that's not just a clever, title. We're really just going to give you some tips, whether these are tips that will work at your house, on your personal device, or at work. Just some things that you can do to configure your Windows computer or your Mac, and maybe some other devices that you may use, as well as jumping into stuff like document management software, and maybe like things like searching in PDFs and making those PDFs searchable. Will, do you want to give us just a little background?
Yeah, thanks, Craig. So I'm the channel marketing manager at a company called Trumpet, and we focus on making it easy for you to ensure that all the documents that you have, whether they're on your personal computer, they're on your computer at work, or they're in your document management system in that repository, that they're all searchable and easy to retrieve. That's one of the solutions in our portfolio called Symphony OCR, and I know we'll touch on that today. But really what we want to do is make sure that you have access to documents when and where you need them as part of your day-to-day work life or your personal life as well, and to make that all simpler and easier for you.
Yeah, and I think that this has become so much more important. Right now, the way things currently are basically electronic data doubles every 2 years. So we're sitting at 4.4 zettabytes right now, and by 2020 that'll be 44. So that'll be 10 times the amount of data that we have to deal with. And so really, I think to me the way I look at it is Google kind of changed everything. So before Google, let's just say you want to find something, you would, I guess, open up a hard drive, and then you would go into a folder, and then you would go into another folder, and then another one, and try to find something. And that's just so inefficient now, and that's not the way that you operate in anything else. So why should it be that way when you're actually searching on your computer as well? So, and we're drowning in data, so it's just really not practical. So we really have to go through, and we have to be better about searching to really be effective.
Yeah, I'd probably even add a point there too, that it's data and documents that we're drowning in, and a lot of that content growth that you're seeing is coming from what we refer to as unstructured content. So you don't always have data paired with that to be able to search and find exactly what you're looking for. That's where things like document management systems help out, and to your point as well, having searchable characters within a document so you can retrieve them based on keywords and things like that. It's even more critical because now it's not just Google that's changed that. Really, some of it is we have smartphones now, so we're capturing images of things on our phones, and there's data from everything from that to closed-circuit TV cameras and traffic cameras and everything else. Everything else is absorbing and providing data, images, and documents that's resulting in the kind of growth that you see there.
Yeah, and we say email as well. So you get like 200 to 300 emails a day, and those emails have attachments on them as well. So how do we really organize all of that material? So we're really we're going to break it down. The first thing we'll talk about is some quick tips and tricks searching in Windows, and then we'll talk about being able to search efficiently on your Mac. Just again, a couple of tips, and then jump into DMS, and then I guess going over OCR and PDFs, and we'll explain what that all means. So, the first thing that I want to talk about here is actually searching for something on a Windows computer. This is the same for Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. There is no Windows 9. XP, you shouldn't be running an XP computer. I don't know what else I can say about that. And if you did search an XP, you would have that little dog that would come up when you would do a search, and then you would type something in there. What really kind of changed between XP and Windows 7 is Microsoft figured that if they could create a search index, searching would be faster. So if they could go through and kind of organize all your data so that when you typed in a search, it would just happen faster. And really, that was the case. So when you do a search now on Windows, starting in Windows 7, it was faster than in XP. However, you really need to be able to go on your Windows computer and control what we call the indexing options. So again, I'm talking about Windows 7, Windows 8, and Windows 10. If you can get to the control panel, you're going to have an option now called indexing options, and this is actually taken from my computer. So the thing to realize, and I kind of figured this out later, and this is the same for my work computer and then the computer I use at home. If you install something like, let's say, Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, it might not be in the indexing options. So you have to come in here to this screen, and there's a little place where you can hit modify, and then you can add that in there. So then when you do a search, you'll find that information faster. And the other thing you might have noticed is when you do a search, sometimes it says only searching the indexing options. If you want to go outside of those options, then it's going to take a lot longer, which is true. So, I mean, the first really big tip here is using a Windows computer. Get to your control panel, that start control panel, or just search for the word control panel. Go to the indexing options, and make sure all your files are in here. The next point, and this is really only on a Windows computer. This is not on Mac. Mac does this. Apple does this automatically. You have the option of turning on a search that will actually let you search inside your files. So by default, that is not turned on. So by default, if you type a search for the word Craig Bayer and you're looking for Craig Bayer in a Word document, or maybe like a court district like 19th JDC, if you don't have this index properties and file contents turned on, you're not doing a search in the files. So again, when I'm in this control panel and I go to indexing options here, if I have this little advanced button, on my computer, I've turned this on. So I am actually looking at every file on my computer, and I'm also looking at the contents of those files. And then really the third thing here is when you're actually doing a search in Windows, and again, if you look at the upper right-hand corner of any folder that you're in, you should have the ability to start typing something in there. That's the search. You can change those options to make sure you're always searching file names and content of those files. And they throw out the disclaimer, this might take several minutes. It doesn't really usually take several minutes. It does take a little bit longer, but you're getting a much better search. Now, I have up here kind of an example of doing a search in Windows. This is an example that I'm taking out of Windows 7. In Windows 8 and Windows 10, it gets a little bit better. So the search that I wanted to do here was for a file that was a docx, which means it's a Word file, and it's 1 megabit or less, and it has the name checklist in it, okay? And so if I typed in all that stuff, I got two options came up here. So I had to type in kind, : equals, doc type equals .docx, size equals medium, and the name is checklist. So let's explain why I have to do that. And if you're sitting here listening to this and thinking that's ridiculous, I think you're right. And who knows this stuff, or who would remember all this stuff to actually type it in? Microsoft uses something, the AQS, or the Advanced Query Syntax. So if you type in the word type : PDF, you're looking at Adobe PDF documents. If you type in store : Outlook, you're searching your email. Will, have you ever typed in any of this stuff before to do a search?
No, I'll be honest, I haven't.
Well, I mean, no one would. And look, go down to size. I think this is funny. So you can type in size : gigantic. Well, what does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? Well, and let's say this afterwards, if you want to know, you can Google it, and it will tell you. And I think gigantic is over 100 megabytes. But let's be realistic. This isn't something that anyone is going to spend the time to. I mean, you could, because we'll send everyone a copy of the slide deck, and if you want to print this out and put it on your wall, you could. But I think that is somewhat a waste of time, and I think that Microsoft kind of started to realize that. So in Windows 8 and Windows 10, you no longer have to memorize all that. So when you go into the search bar, it will have some of these things for you, like size, kind, date modified. These are all functions that appear. But for anyone like me who's still running Windows 7, I don't have that. So, in a sense, I kind of am supposed to memorize the advanced query syntax, which, I never did. So the way that I got around it, and I really got around this because a client showed me this, there's a tool called X1 Search, and it's a really interesting product. It's about $50 for the desktop version, so you just install it on your computer, and it creates its own index, and it allows you to do really clean searches. So I can just, choose a date option and then choose between two dates, choose a document type option like PDF or Word, and it's really, really easy. The other thing that I found pretty invaluable is that it hooks into stuff like Gmail. So, personal use for me, I'm using Gmail, and this will actually go into my Gmail account. If I do a search on my computer, it will actually search my Gmail account. And I can link it to stuff like Google Docs and OneDrive and things like that. So it's going to search those offline area or the online areas as well as the offline areas. But, to me, I hate to say that, you need to now go buy something, and Will and I are not getting paid by X1 Search at all. It's just the only way that I've found, besides using document management software, to actually do really good searches on my computer. So yeah, so it's, I put this in, you don't have to learn the advanced query syntax if you want to use it, and then you can attach, third-party tools like Box and SharePoint. All right, so we're about to get out of the Windows world for all you Mac users, so don't worry. The last thing that I will kind of bring up, if you are using a server at your office and all your documents are on that server, okay, and you want to be able to do a search on your computer, but you want to be looking for information on that server, you actually have to go into that server, and this is where you might need to get your IT person to do this, and turn on the Windows Search service. So if you don't have this turned on and you do a search on your computer, you're just looking at your computer. So you have to turn that on, and then once you do, Windows is basically going to create the index of your S or T drive, and then give you the ability to search there. All right, so that gets us out of the Windows search, and now we'll jump onto searching on your Mac, your Apple computer. And, to make my life complicated, I also have a Mac that I use all the time, as well as a Windows computer. The Mac stuff, in this instance, or as other people would say in many instances, is a little bit easier because you don't have to turn any of this stuff on. So in the Windows, world, we had to go in there, we had to look at our indexing options, we had to check some stuff off. The Spotlight, which is basically the Mac search, pretty much just works. However, there's a couple of things that I want to shut off, and what you can do is go up to your preferences and go to Spotlight Search, and this will come up. This kind of really annoyed me when it first came out. So if I did a search on my computer, and this is kind of funny, but Microsoft paid Apple to do this, Bing web search results will come up. So if I'm looking for usually when you're doing a search on your computer, you're looking for something on your computer, and if you want to look for something online, you go online, right? I mean, that's how, Will, isn't that kind of your thinking? I mean, that's mine when I'm doing some searching.
Yeah, it's funny. I'll find that sometimes if I'm using the webmail application, it'll give me the option to search my email or then also search web results. Well, I'm in email, trying to find an email, right? So I don't need Bing to tell me how to find those things.
Yeah, and it is just funny that Microsoft paid Apple to do this. I will also say this: if you are an iPhone user, same thing we're talking about here. So it's go into settings on your iPhone, and you can change the settings here as well. Uncheck this. I mean, I have, because again, it's just somewhat annoying to actually have to go in there and do a search. You get 30 results, and 15 of them are websites that you don't want to look. So I would shut off the Bing web searches and the Spotlight suggestions. And you can go through actually here. Maybe there's some other stuff you want to turn off as well, and you can see that here in the Spotlight. The other thing, so when we're doing a search, something that I want people to be aware of is you go up to your top right-hand corner. There's the search option. You type in your search. At the bottom left of your search, you can throw this in the Finder. And if you use a Mac, you know what I'm talking about. And it gives you some better options to do filtering. It's really kind of hard to filter in Spotlight itself. So I usually, when I'm doing a search, will throw it into Finder. So that's really the only thing that I'd recommend changing on your computer. The other thing that I'll just bring up, which I find is really cool, and I use this all the time, is if I go into Spotlight and type in $100, it will give me a currency conversion right there. If I type in 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it will give me the temperature in Celsius and in Kelvin, and stuff like that. I could do that for measurement. So I actually use this when I'm cooking in the kitchen all the time. 1 quart equals, and it'll tell me how many cups, that sort of thing. So you can do a search like that, which is just it's kind of funny. And then the other thing that I will bring up, Spotlight search is again, kind of runs into the same issue that Windows does with the advanced query text. So it's really hard for me, I find, on my Mac to say, you know what, I want a PDF document that I modified in June. I have a hard time doing that search. So I found this tool called Whotospot, and all it's doing is giving you a better graphical interface on your searching, and it costs, I think, around $30. So it's HOODAH Spot, and I use this on my Mac all the time too. So I'm actually not really using Spotlight. I'm using this because you see here it gives me, when was this created? It contains these words. Exclude these 2 locations, and limit it. So it really, it gives you the options, and we're going to talk about this in a second, because I'm mainly, for work life, I use a document management system, so I have these options, and I want them just on my computer as well. And Will, you're using a Windows 10 computer, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm on a Lenovo ThinkPad myself. So, but it's interesting,
Yeah.
interesting to see both whether you're on a Mac or a PC. You know, there's a need. Someone's identified a need for an easier way to search just on those PCs.
Yeah, and again, you know, the interesting thing here is that this Hootspot is not actually, it's not creating its own index or anything like that. It's using all the tools that Apple has. It's just giving you just a better way of doing the actual search itself.
Friendlier interface, right?
Yeah, so now we're just going to jump in and briefly go over document management software. Again, I think it's because I've used DMS in my work life that I kind of was, you know, first got interested. Well, how do I just search, you know, my personal Dropbox and find stuff? You know, in the legal and I would say financial services market, you know, there's three big players: WorldDocs, NetDocuments, and iManage, which just recently spun off out of HP. Do you ever run into any other document management software for, I guess, the financial services and the legal verticals?
You know, there may be others, but these certainly are the ones we run into time and time again.
I mean, I guess you could throw in there SharePoint, but that's like saying, you know, QuickBooks for accounting. I mean, a lot of people, you know, SharePoint's just generic. So, yeah, you know, these are kind of the big three. NetDocuments is all online, and WorldDocs and iManage is the traditional, like, we will install the software at your office. The only reason that I think we bring this up is because we just want to kind of go over some of the benefits of using the document management software. Here, to me, is the first one, and this seems really, really easy, but I've already used this today. Is I had a proposal that I've been sending back and forth with someone, and it's got like 6 revisions, and I was trying to find it, and I actually had printed it out. You can kind of see here that there's this doc ID, for this example, there's 6 revisions. So it's a nice thing about a good document management software is it will give you a doc ID on the bottom of that document, and then you can just type in that doc ID and it'll bring you right to that document. So that is, you have all the benefits that we've talked about before on the Windows and Mac of being able to search like dates and all that good data, but then you add stuff like a doc ID, which just makes it a little more powerful. The other thing that you can do is you can create your own metadata. So if you've ever right-clicked on a file, you'll see the date created, the date it was modified, you know, what's the size of the file, who was the person that created it. All that stuff is called metadata, and it's all searchable. And the nice thing is, on your Windows computer or Mac, you can search that metadata. So something that I modified in the last 7 days, we're looking at the metadata of the file. A good DMS allows you to add your own metadata as well. So you can do things like add, you know, client, matter, an author. So not the person who last modified it, but who is considered the author of this file. And so if an attorney dictated a message and another person, you know, took that dictation and created the document out of it, the attorney is still the author, while, you know, that person is considered maybe the typist or transcriptionist. And you could track all of that information. I think what I really see is the ability to be able to search for doc types. So let me search for anything that was tagged pleading, becomes pretty powerful. So I think what we've talked about so far is, you know, documents on your computer. And let me be clear, because maybe this I haven't been before. Even if you're using something like Google Drive or Dropbox or OneDrive, those documents still reside on your computer. You might have to change some of the indexing options, but when you do a search, that stuff will come up. So we talked about that for Windows and Mac, and then just some added benefits of being able to search if using a DMS, being able to create your own metadata and having stuff like doc IDs. The last thing, and this is where Will can really help me out here, is being able to search PDFs, because there's a problem. This problem, I think, is more prevalent if you get a document management system, just because you notice it more. I think probably most people on here aren't using X1 search, or they're not using Hootspot. So when they do searches, you don't realize the stuff that you're missing. When you do get a DMS, you start realizing maybe there's some stuff that's not coming up, but you know it's there. And the way that I found this out is let's just jump in and talk about PDFs and are those PDFs OCR. So if you take a piece of paper and you scan it using a scanner and it becomes an electronic file, it is not a document. It really is it's a picture. Is that a good way of describing it, Will?
Yeah. You essentially have an image, right? So those words that your eye recognizes, the letters and characters you recognize as a human being looking at that, a computer doesn't recognize them in the same way. So OCR, just to make that clear to the audience, is optical character recognition. So it's a process of taking with essentially a picture and identifying and converting the images in that picture into characters that can be recognized and can then return keyword search results either globally or within the document itself, like you've got in the image that you see here on screen.
Yeah, I mean, this is the I would say trick that I do. If someone's like, is this PDF OCR? And I'm like, well, open it up and see if you can search for a word in it. And if you can't, then it's probably not OCR'd. So, let me just go back to everything that we talked about here on your Windows computer or your Mac. We gave you the ability now to search actually in those files. Well, if the PDF is not OCR'd, you're not searching in a file. And I think that's what I was alluding to when I was talking about document management software and how people start to realize once they do a search there that some of this stuff is just not coming up. And the other thing that's nice about OCR is it makes it easier to convert stuff into Word. Once it's been OCR'd, you really can't do it until you do that OCR process.
Yeah, that's right. And just to add a little context there, I think where this becomes a problem or it becomes a problem that's visible and recognizable is that people go from whatever they're using prior to adopting a document management system. They put these things into a document management system, they organize them, they formalize everything, and now they have far more powerful search capabilities, but they only have the ability to search on the content of those documents if they've gone through some sort of an optical character recognition process. So on screen here you see a little the headline for Symphony OCR. That's our Symphony optical character recognition product. And the function of that product is to analyze and monitor the documents in your system, whether that's Windows folder tree, whether that's NetDocuments, whether that's World Docs, analyzes all the documents that are there and identifies those that have gone through an OCR process, and that also identifies the ones that haven't, and then converts those documents for you. The great thing about Symphony OCR is that it can even look at a document and identify where there's been some OCR components, meaning some content that's searchable, and some that's an image that that really could be converted to characters as well to give you more searchability. I would say in my experience at Trumpet, where we've had people take their documents from whatever traditional repository they were in or gathered them from emails and scan paper files and put them into World Docs or NetDocuments, is that on average I'm seeing about a third of those documents haven't gone through an OCR process. So I talked to a customer literally this week who converted or who added 1 million documents into their NetDocument system. Out of those 1 million documents, after taking it through a Symphony OCR analysis, they identified that 30% of those, or 300,000 documents, were blind to the search capabilities of the document management system because they hadn't been OCR'd. So you have this expectation when you put a document management system in place that now everything's going to be accessible and retrievable, but you need to be aware that those things need to go through some sort of an OCR process so that it's identifiable, at least from a content search standpoint.
Yeah, and really, we're not even, and even if you don't, if you're on this presentation and you're like, well, I don't use a DMS, same thing. If you're doing the Windows search now and you're looking for text and file, those un-OCR PDFs, just won't come up. I mean, I was first made aware of this, and I'm going to date myself here, but in 2004, I was working with a mass tort firm in Mississippi, and we were basically moving, they wanted better searching capability, and we were trying to OCR documents. And to be clear here, if you have a, Adobe Standard or Adobe Pro, you have OCR built into it. So you have the ability to take an OCR PDF and OCR it. The problem is that's like a one-off process. So you have to open up a PDF, find out if it's OCR'd or not, and then OCR it. And that could take forever. I use this example up here on the screen because this is kind of maybe an outlier, but it shows that we installed, Symphony, and one of the things you can do is you can run a little analyzer tool that does a really good job and says, okay, here's how many un-OCR PDFs you have, and that's what we did here. It's going to take 61 days, 11 hours, and 42 minutes to OCR everything. Now, this firm we're looking at a 3 million page count. So that's a lot of OCRing going on. We're looking at 2 months to OCR everything in the firm, but that's only if the person is working 24 hours a day. So, and the other thing is, if you weren't using one of these, like something like Symphony OCR, you're going to have to open up every single PDF. I don't know of a way to not do that, to OCR it. So, and the other thing is, when you run the OCR process, it'll also straighten up the pages too, which is nice as well. So, I think this kind of is a kind of good bookend to this, because it kind of describes maybe the missing piece in searching, regardless if you're using just a regular computer or you have something in something like a DMS.
Yeah, that's right. And just to put a finer point on it too, that 61 days then would be the processing time to convert those documents to an OCR'd PDF format with the resources that were on that particular server, not dedicated. I was going to say right now, this was on a crappy computer. I would just tell you that right now. It was on like a Windows. This was on. I said, who uses Windows XP? This was installed on a Windows XP computer. So it was, with like 4 gigs of RAM and that sort of thing. So. Right, and you can actually dedicate one or multiple servers or cores on an individual server to that conversion process. But the illustration here really is, if you've got that many documents in your system that haven't been OCR'd and you're going to try to do it in some other manual fashion, it's going to take you far longer than 61 days, which is, a minimal automated process to get there. And then breakpoint. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Oh no, I was just going to say. And just to your point then, whether they're Windows folder tree files that aren't in a document management system, or you've organized them into, a World Docs or NetDocuments repository, it's going to go through the same analysis and conversion process for you, and then continue to monitor it as you add in new documents to the system.
Yeah. So basically, no one has to do anything, which is great. I mean, it has to be installed on a computer and set up, and then it'll just run by itself. So the man hours are almost zero. I mean, let's just say 30 minutes. 30 minutes or something like that would be the entire, output for your firm to get everything OCR. And I mean, I don't know of any other way of doing this. And I've asked people before. I mean, you have to use a product like this to actually go through and get this. You're never going to do this. This firm right here would have never been able to get 3 million pages done. I mean, I think I installed this 2 years ago. They'd still be working on it. So I think that just for people on this call, there's just a couple of, Will's been very gracious, for my customers to offer some deals for people on this call. If you want to talk about that real quick.
Yeah, thanks, Craig. Right, so for those of you who have registered or attended the webinar today, we offer, again, a product that integrates with NetDocuments or WorldDocs that analyzes that repository and then converts those documents for you and gives you ongoing monitoring. As I mentioned, we also offer a product called Symphony OCR for Windows File Tree. So if you have documents in your repository and then have documents elsewhere in your organization that you want to monitor, what we'll do is give you a bundle of those two products together, and then rather than charging you for that Windows File Tree license in the first year, we'll provide that to you at no additional charge in that first year, as long as you purchase before December 31st. So that's a $250 value that's offered exclusively to those of you who have attended or registered for today's webinar. If you only need the one product, whether it's Windows Folder Tree or Symphony OCR for NetDocuments or WorldDocs, we'll give you 5% off of that if you purchase before December 31st. The real value is the combination of the two, but you benefit either way if you purchase before the end of the year.
Perfect. I really appreciate that. So, I mean, hopefully this was just a quick, brief webinar that you could get just a couple of tips. Like I said, I have a white paper that we'll send to all attendees, as well as just send a copy of the slide deck as well, because I've got some notes in there. If anyone has any questions at all, feel free to ask them. Our contact information is up here as well. And I really enjoyed doing this, so thank you so much for being on here, Will.
Yeah, my pleasure, Craig. Again, we wanted to keep this to around 30 minutes. For those of you who'd like to see a more in-depth demo of Symphony OCR, it is a very simple solution, but you can contact either of us, and we'll give a deeper dive and take a specific look at your search and document management needs.
All right, well, Will, thank you so much. You have a great day, and thanks, everyone, for attending.
Great, my pleasure.